A broken heart is an open heart. For those of you reading this right now who are suffering from a broken heart, I know there's nothing more painful, but take advantage of staying open. By shutting down your heart and blocking out your feelings, you may think you are playing it safe, but you are just hurting yourself. We close our hearts down and numb ourselves as a survival mechanism of the ego. But all we're really doing is creating a game of self-deception and self-denial. We walk around with so many walls around our hearts, not even aware we have them. We defend, reflect, argue, blame, defend some more, protect, shield, hide, fight, battle, resist, thinking by doing so we are preserving and safeguarding our heart. We are not, though. The walls keep us in conflict, keep us prisoner, and shut down our joy and the flow of life. They are where we have not yet learned how to be unconditional love to ourselves. Just like the projective Berlin Wall came down, we must do the same. As Rumi says, your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built. One of my favorite yoga poems. My beloved child, break your heart no longer. Each time you judge yourself, you break your own heart. You stop feeding on the love, which is the wellspring of your vitality. The time has come, your time to live, to celebrate and see the goodness that you are. You, my child, are divine. You are pure. You are sublimely free. You are God in disguise, and you are always perfectly safe. Do not fight the dark, just turn on the light. Let go and breathe into the goodness that you are. Emergency contact. Happiness is having someone to write in the emergency contact space. Me. A lot of people have hang-ups when it comes to going to the doctor, as well as myself, but filling out the emergency contact form is probably not one of them. For most, there isn't a second thought. For me, I stare at the blank space considering who I could put down, which can rouse feelings of loneliness and, if I'm not careful, bring me down into the nobody loves me mood. Sometimes I would just leave it blank, which sparked the question from the medical administration, are you sure there's no one? Feeling worse. Before I met soulmate number 4, I was content with being alone and growing old alone. I thought I would be like the Golden Girls. But now I know that was just another lie I was telling myself. No one wants to be alone, maybe temporary, but not forever. Bonding is in our biology. It is innate. Human beings are not meant to be alone. I realized I want to grow old with someone who will stick by my side through thick and thin. I don't know what that is like. I had a wart on my hand that stuck around longer than any of my relationships. My heart is calling for someone that will stand the test of time, the trials and tribulations, the ups and downs, the good, the bad, and the ugly. My heart is calling for that unbreakable love. Women need to be in love with themselves, with a man, with a child, with a project, with a job, with their country, with the planet, and most importantly, with life itself. Women in love are closer to enlightenment. For angels and lovers, everything sparkles. From A Woman's Worth. I just want to sparkle. I think those of us who are alone crave company, and those who are in a relationship, especially if it's challenging, wish they were alone. But there are many ways you can have relationships that are healthy and rewarding. I think it's important that we don't define a relationship so much as to the form of it, but rather the content. Love never dies. When you lose someone you love, you gain an angel you know. Oprah. During my separation from soulmate number 4, my father passed away. It wasn't a big surprise because he had been sick and disabled from a stroke years ago and never recovered. I hadn't seen my dad in over 10 years, and the amount of conversations we had I could count on one hand. Even so, the finality of death, especially a parent, is a major loss. It was Saturday, September 5th, and I was on my way to Fire Island to do massages. I opened my email in the morning and deleted the usual gazillion emails from my dad, most of them silly forwards. Since the stroke, the computer and technology became his best friend. There was one, however, that caught my attention. And God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes, and there shall be no more death, neither sorrow nor crying, neither shall there be any more pain, for the former things are passed away. Revelation 21:4. Sadness took me by surprise. This was the scripture I chose for Eugene's Mass card. All day long, even in my most favorite place in the world, I couldn't shake this sadness. I had a new client that day with back pain, and her 7-year-old daughter, who was extremely intuitive, insisted on staying next to me while I worked on her mother. Her mother said that was unusual for her. This little angel wouldn't leave my side, even hugged me as I was massaging her mother and told me she loved me. I welcomed this pure love, even though I thought it was a little odd. I had to fight back the emotions. She hugged me about 10 more times before I left their house. As I was riding my bike back to my car, I passed a church with a mass happening, which I thought was strange since it was the middle of the day. I never knew there was a church on that street, even though I had walked by it 1,000 times. I stopped my bike and sat outside on the front steps and listened to the mass. I thought about my father. And couldn't help feeling this terrible ache in my heart. I couldn't sit there any longer. Still feeling this haunting sadness, as I was driving home across the Robert Moses Bridge, I pulled out a call to my angels to send me a friend. I don't want to be alone tonight. When I got home, I got a text from my brother. Dad just died. I knew it. My dad knew it too. He knew he was going to die that day. I always wondered how I was going to feel when my dad died, since we never had a close relationship. It still felt like a loss, actually a double loss. I felt sad because I never had a relationship with him. Sad because I wasn't there for him. And I cried because I lost a father that I never really had. But then I had an epiphany. At that moment, I began talking to my dad like he was right next to me. It felt like he was, so I said to him, Dad, if you are here, can you be a father to me now and be there for me? I need help. I am struggling and I'm hurting. Please help me. I was still feeling the loss over soulmate number 4, and now this was too much to bear. I was walking Karma, crying and praying to my father, and within a few minutes, I felt the sadness dissipate and the pain in my heart dissolve. It was a miracle. I could breathe deeply again. Thank you, Dad, I whispered as I walked home. The angels had a call in to my wonderful friend Lisa, who arrived at the perfect time with my 2 favorite foods, sushi and chocolate. She was an angel, stayed till midnight talking with me. I'm so blessed to have such wonderful friends in my life. I don't know what I'd do without them. From a fortune cookie I saved from 15 years old. Your road will be made smooth for you by good friends. Since my dad has passed away, I have a better relationship with him now than I had when he was alive. He couldn't help me when he was stuck in his disabled human body in Florida, but now that he is free in his spiritual essence, he is with me and helping me every day to heal my heart. My dad can be with me now just as quickly as I think about him. I find Peanut Shells, his nickname for me was Peanut, and I see his initials FJZ on license plates almost every single day, sometimes twice a day when I really need him. In India, when someone leaves their body, they say they are now in their big form, meaning they are now everywhere, connected to us all. It makes sense. Our true essence is soul, light, infinite, and eternal energy. When we are in a limited human body, there is only so much we could do. When we are free of the body or the suit, we are truly free, and our spirit can soar and be everywhere. Don't grieve. Anything you lose comes round in another form. Rumi. I am amazed at this miracle and grateful to have my dad in my life now when I need him the most. It's the content, not the form, that matters. I pray that if you've lost a loved one and your heart is broken, that you find comfort in knowing they are still with you in spirit and always will be just a thought away. Know that they are truly free and at peace, home with God. surrounded by unconditional love and acceptance. The only thing that lasts is love. When there are no words, know that the whispering of the winds carry the love of those you hold dear. Peace be with you. Love is content. A couple of months later, I met someone, not someone I would want to be in a committed relationship with as he was going through his own healing crisis, but someone who turned out to be very special to me nonetheless. I only realized this after he moved away and I felt a loss. Even though I only knew him for 5 months, my soul felt like I knew him forever. Being with him was so easy, and talking with him was like continuing a conversation from another lifetime. We became instant friends. There was no drama, no expectations, no conflict, much different than anything I have experienced before. The universe was making up for the lack of communication from soulmate number 4, apparently, as we would talk for hours upon end about things that really mattered. Our bond came from our unmasked conversation, which led to real communion. In each other's presence, we healed simply by being a witness to each other's pain and a reminder to each other's light. He was a gift to my soul. He showed me there are men in the world that show up and are in touch with their feelings and their heart. The form was different, but the content was pure love. Then there's the opposite, when the content is gone, but the form is still there. I know many people in loveless marriages and relationships that they choose to stay in for many different reasons. The most common is the children. It is better to be alone than to be living at half throttle. Marianne Williamson. There are only so many hours left in your life. Actually, there are 8,448 hours in a year. If you live 40 more years, for example, that's 337,920 hours left. How do you want to spend them? There will never be growth without coming out of your comfort zone. Staying together for the children is a noble idea, but what are you teaching your children? Sometimes we need to stay and work things out, and sometimes it's time to go. Only your heart will know what is right for you. Like Mary Oliver says, tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? The Invitation by Orion Dreamer. It doesn't interest me what you do for a living. I want to know what you ache for, and if you dare to dream of meeting your heart's longing. It doesn't interest me how old you are. I want to know if you will risk looking like a fool for love, for your dreams, for the adventure of being alive. It doesn't interest me what planets are squaring your moon. I want to know if you have touched the center of your own sorrow, if you have been opened by life's betrayals, or have you become shriveled and closed from fear of further pain. I want to know if you can sit with pain, mine or your own, without moving to hide it or fade it or fix it. I want to know if you can be with joy, mine or your own, if you can dance with wildness and let the ecstasy fill you to the tips of your fingers and toes without cautioning us to be careful, to be realistic, or to remember the limitations of being human. It doesn't interest me if the story you're telling me is true. I want to know if you can disappoint another to be true to yourself, if you can bear the accusation of betrayal and not betray your own soul. I want to know if you could be faithful and therefore be trustworthy. I want to know if you could see beauty even when it's not pretty every day, and if you can source your life from God's presence. I want to know if you can live with failure, yours and mine, and still stand on the edge of a lake and shout to the sliver of the moon, yes. It doesn't interest me to know where you live or how much money you have. I want to know if you can get up after the night of grief and despair, weary and bruised to the bone, and do what needs to be done for the children. It doesn't interest me where or with whom you have studied. I want to know what sustained you from the inside when all else falls away. I want to know if you could be alone with yourself, and if you truly like the company you keep in the empty moments. Unexpected help from an unexpected soul. During one of my intuitive healing sessions before my father passed, the guide asked me about my daughter's grandfather. She said he was coming through to communicate. I told her my daughter's grandfather was still alive in Florida. She said, no, it's her grandfather and he's definitely not alive. Then I thought maybe he was from Eugene's side of the family. She said, no, he's connected to you. All of a sudden, it dawned on me that it could be my biological father. I normally don't think about him since he was never a part of my life. She concurred that it was my biological father. I didn't know how to react. Here was my father, sort of, in spirit form, coming to me for the first time in my life. She asked me if I had any questions for him. As long as she was still in the space of communication, you never know how long these connections last. Of course, I wanted to ask him questions. I had so many, but his appearance was so sudden and unexpected. The only thing that popped into my mind, which I had wondered from time to time, was the most important question of all, but I was afraid to ask. I did anyway, since I thought this might be my only chance to know the answer. Bravely and reluctantly, I asked, did he know about me? This question brings up so much emotion in me as I'm writing this part. I realize that no matter how awakened or enlightened we become, there will always be a part of us that hurts, that yearns for that fatherly or motherly love. I waited for what seemed like an eternity, my heart hanging on a limb. She responded, no, he did not know about you. Phew, my heart was saved. She continued, he wants you to know that he wishes he did know about you and he was a part of your life. He sees how you have grown into a beautiful woman and regrets not being there for you. His karma is to watch over Ayana now. She will never be alone. He is at her side. He kisses her on her forehead and is always with her. I was at a loss for words. I didn't know what to say or how to feel, to be honest. I wanted to ask him more questions, but the connection was gone. I knew it would take time for me to process what just happened. On the practical side, since family support is not something I ever had, it was comforting to know that my biological father is watching over my 20-year-old daughter who is living across the country. A few days later, I shared this with my daughter as she listened quietly. When I got to the part that he kisses her on her forehead, she replied, "That's pretty creepy, Mom." Laughing at her response, she, on the other hand, was not so convinced. Now when I pray for my daughter, I say, all three fathers in heaven, please help Ayana. There's 3 of you now. Someone's got to be able to do something. Even though my daughter and I grew up without a father, we each have one now. Actually, 3. Grateful. Amen.